Continuing our look at formatting worksheets, let's take a look now at aligning cells, and we're also going to take a look at adding borders, wrapping text, conditional formatting, and at the end of this particular video, we're going to look at how to delete formatting for what we just did. Let's begin by looking at the aligning of the cells. In the previous videos, we looked at the fact that by default, Excel is going to auto-align text to the left and numbers to the right. That doesn't mean that you have to keep it like that. And it also doesn't mean that if you want to change it for visually more appealing, that you can't make those changes as well. If you've ever done aligning in Word or PowerPoint, you're probably familiar with what's going to happen here. So here we have a worksheet, and we have left, right, center, top, middle, and bottom. We're going to look at how to align each of these according to what the cell says. So by default, this is aligned to the left because it's text. But if I wanted to manually override this, I would go up here to the Home tab, the Alignment ribbon, and click on Align Left. This one I want to align to the right. Again, I go back to the Home tab, over here in the Alignment ribbon. I look over here at Align Right. By the way, those little pop-up things that tells you what it is, those are called tooltips. If you hover your mouse or cursor over a certain button, after a couple of seconds, it should pop up and tell you what's going on. So I'm going to click Align Right. It moves to the right. Align Center, again, Home, Alignment, Center. There you go. Over here, I want to move this to the top of the cell. Same area, except above it. Here is Top Align. Click on that. Middle, Middle Align, and Bottom by default. But if I wanted to manually set it, I would click there. Moving down a little bit more on this worksheet, I have this text that's in here. Notice that this text is actually only in A11. It's only in this cell, but it goes on. It continues on because there's nothing to the side of it, and it overruns that cell. If I was to type anything into the cell next to it, let's just type in 1. Notice what happens. It disappears. So Excel will allow a cell to just continue on if there's nothing to the right of it. But if you have any value in a cell next to it, it's going to have an issue. It's going to remove it. Now, the text is still there, as you can see. It's just not letting it overrun. Let's remove the 1, and you can see what's going on here. I want to instead wrap text. I want all this text to be visible within this cell. I'm going to select the cell, Home, Alignment. Here's Wrap Text. I click on it, and as you can see, the cell grew to accommodate the text within that cell. I can add line breaks. If I want to add a line break in between this paragraph and this paragraph, as you already see there's one there, I can't just go in here and hit enter. Watch what happens when I go in and hit enter. It just moves down a cell, which is what we talked about in a previous video. Instead, what I need to do, and this is a nice little trick that you can do in Excel, is I hold down the Alt button and hit enter. And that adds line breaks. Let's see this again, bring it all the way back up here. I'm holding down the Alt button and I'm hitting enter. And there you go. By the way, you might have noticed as I was holding down the Alt button, we had the shortcuts popped up. That's from Unit 1 that we talked about that. Another thing you can do to help people be able to see what you're doing in your worksheet, make it easier to track, is add borders to your cells. So I'm going to highlight the cells that I want to work with. I'm going to make sure I'm in the Home tab, go over here to Fonts, and here is the Borders button. When I click on it, you're going to see it apply all borders. This is kind of a default. If I want to have more control over this, I can go in and click the drop down. When I click the drop down, I'm presented with more options as far as borders go. If I want to have real control over the borders, I can scroll down to where it says more borders. From here, I can add different styles to the lines on the borders. I can add different colors to the borders. I basically have a lot more control over how the borders appear. So that is borders. Another cool feature that you can find in Excel is something called conditional formatting. What conditional formatting does is it applies formatting based on certain conditions of the cells. So the alternative to this is by manually formatting your cells, by going into the cells and manually formatting, changing colors, etc., etc. In this case, what you can do is you can highlight the cells that you want to do things to and apply conditions to it. I have here some numbers. Down here, by the way, is the average. So all of these numbers combined, here is the average. Don't worry about how we figured that out. We'll talk about formulas in another unit. Just know that 62.8 is the average of all these combined as of right now. I want to apply a conditional format that will tell me if I have somebody in danger. So let's pretend this is a grade average. Let's pretend that I'm a teacher and this is my grade book and these are averages of students. And I want to be able to tell at a glance if a student is in danger of failing the course. So I can highlight, like I said, the range of cells that I'm interested in. I'm going to make sure I'm in my Home tab. I'm going to go over here to Styles, and right here is conditional formatting. In another unit, we're going to take a closer look at some of the more advanced logical statements, the if, then kind of things, where we can really dig into the nuts and bolts of formatting and conditions and all that good stuff. But for right now, just understand there's some pre-made defaults that we can use. We have the highlight cell rules. We have top bottom rules. This is what I'm looking for. I want to know if somebody is below average. So I'm going to select this. I'm going to go down here to below average. What this just did is it went through all these numbers that I have in my range and figured out the average on its own. It then presents me with options of how I want this to look. Do I want it to be yellow filled? Do I want green filled? Let's make this maybe red text. Now let's do something even better that's easier to see. We'll do, there we go. That's pretty visible. If I'm a teacher, I can take a quick look at this and see what's going on. I'm going to click OK. And as you see, it applied formatting to numbers that met the below average. I can go in, by the way, and this is where conditional formatting is really awesome. Let's say that this 90 changes. Let's say this 90 average changes, for example, into a 40. Watch what happens when I hit enter. You see that automatically formatting was changed to that 40. Let's say down here, this 35 turns into a 100. Watch what happens when I hit the enter button. And as you can see, that formatting is gone. So it applies formatting based on conditions. Pretty cool stuff. Now, let's delete formatting. Let's say I want to get rid of all this formatting. I can clear formatting. To clear formatting, I make sure I'm in the Home tab. I go all the way over to the side under the editing ribbon area. You see this button that says clear. I'm going to click the drop down and I'm going to go to clear formats. Now, as you can see, all the formatting is gone that we just put in there. So that will delete and clear the formats.